This is Cheyenne Valentine, back today again with a new episode. In today's episode, I want to talk about, do black people have low self-esteem, or, I don't know how I'm going to word this. Do black people crave a sense of belonging? Now, I don't know what I'm going to title this video, because I make my titles after I talk and rant on camera, and then I just figure out what I'm going to name it. But let me get into this real quickly. So, I feel like blacks who were born over here in America, and now what I mean, let's say for example there's a couple that comes from Ethiopia, which is in Africa. They come over here, let's skip that. Let's say it's a couple that comes from Kenya. They come over here, a husband and wife, and they have their son over here. Yes, he was born in America, but his mom and dad's from Kenya, so he can still trace his lineage back to Kenya. Now that's one example. Now, another example of a black person being born over here is me. Somebody who ancestors were brought over here and enslaved. So, therefore, I don't know what part of Africa they come from. So it's two different types of blacks in my opinion. It's the blacks that were born over here and their ancestors were brought over here and enslaved. Therefore, they can trace their lineage. I guess they do a DNA test on themselves and trace the ancestry line, but they just don't know word, basically from word of mouth, because all the people that they have known that have lived and died was born over here. You follow me? Then you have the black who parents or grandparents migrated over here at will. Let me say this again. They weren't brought over here in enslaved. They came over here at will, of their own free will. And they, maybe was born over here. Or maybe they were, already a teenager when they came over here. Maybe they were adult and whatnot. So, it's a guy that I work with. I didn't even know that he migrated over here from Africa. I thought he was just like me, a black person over here in America that didn't know their ancestry line. But actually he came over here, I don't know what age he was, but he came over here with his mom and dad and grandmother, and he says grandmother actually moved back to Africa. And he told me what part he's from and everything. I can't even remember. And I have a sense of jealousy towards him, but not jealousy like I hate him. Jealousy, no, he's really cool. And it's not a jealousy like a hatred jealousy. It's more of I admire the fact that he knows his ancestry line. He came straight from Africa over here. And even if he came from the poorest village in Africa, he still knows where he comes from. And that brings me to say that I think black Americans, and when I say black Americans, I'm talking about the blacks whose ancestors were brought over here and enslaved, and we don't know what part of Africa we're from. Those are the black Americans that I'm speaking to now. I think deep down on a subconscious level, we maybe have a sense of not feeling like we belong, and we might have a level of not loving ourselves or hating ourselves, because sometimes when you don't know who you are, you tend to have identity issues and you tend to want to feel like you belong. And it's no pride in who you is. I mean, why would you have pride when you don't even really know who the hell you are? And on top of that, you're in a country where people look down on people that look like you, so they don't really want you to have your own culture and be proud of it. So you're fighting against the grain. And so I think a lot of blacks, I'm not gonna say a lot, but I think a significant amount of blacks don't realize that they have internal self-esteem issues, and they want to feel like they belong, and that's why they get into stuff, or they don't like themselves, or they can't seem to put their look on a pedestal. They always seem to put another person's look on a pedestal, or they always seem to put another race of people on a pedestal above their own. And they don't seem to truly love themselves, because you wouldn't do certain things to yourself and belittle your culture and the opposite gender and the things that we do, that I have participated in myself, if you truly loved yourself. And I think blacks want to feel like they belong someplace, and I think the black Americans deep down feel that disconnect from not knowing truly what part of Africa we come from. And if we come from Africa, I mean, I think our ancestors were brought from Africa. That's my, see, I don't even know. I'm assuming it was Africa, right? And so the reason why I thought about this was at work. one of my managers, he's Irish, and I came into work one day, another day, and he had on some green beads around his neck. So I was like, oh, those beads are cute. Cool, or whatever. They said they were cool. I don't think I called them cute. And he said, oh, thank you. But he didn't tell me why he had them on, or if they symbolized anything. I just thought he just had the beads on. Well, his wife came in later, and I like his wife. She's real cool. She was kind of fixed up, and she had on a green shirt. And she said, today is Irish Day. And I said, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, why he didn't say anything to me? Well, he didn't say anything to me because I'm black, so he figured I didn't give a damn. But the difference between me and him is that I like other people's cultures. I'm intrigued by it, but I can still love my own culture at the same time, find interest in yours too. And most people can't do that. So she said, yeah, it's Irish Day. So she said, if you don't have on green, you get someone can pinch you. And that's like a little tradition. So I wanted to ask them more questions about, do they have like a festival and things like that, but I just left them alone. And I also, so later on the day, they had a meeting, and some other investors came in, and one was saying, yeah, I'm half Irish, and other one saying my family comes from Ireland and England. And I just overheard them talking. All of them were white, of course. And I was just listening, and I found it very intriguing and interesting, but then I felt kind of sorry for myself, because I can't have that conversation with another black person. Black Americans, we can't have that conversation. We don't know where the fuck we come from. We don't have a sense of belonging. And I'm telling you, that affects us on a deeper level. When, like, let's say with Hispanics or Mexicans, even though they're trying to escape their country and come over here, some of them, and, cross the border for a better life over here, they still know where they come from. They still know they're Mexican. I've heard blacks say they're not even African. It's so confusing. That's like a Mexican, coming over here from Mexico, and let's say 300 years later, let's say he comes over here from Mexico, he never visits Mexico again, and 300 years later, his great grandkids tells another Mexican, well, I don't know what part of Mexico I don't even know if I'm Mexican or not. It's just dumb. I get we're so disconnected from our ancestry line that we don't know what part of Africa, and it's even like my brother said that he's not African, he's from Mississippi, and I get what you're saying, but I'm talking about, what is your fucking race? That's like a white person saying I'm not Caucasian, I'm American. Okay, I understand you're American, but your actual ancestry line, some of you come from England, Ireland, Russia, and some of them know, and we don't have a clue. We just say we're black. We actually come from a place, everybody. Our ancestors came from a place. And people might say, well, it's so many people from Africa and other countries fleeing their country to come over here because the country ain't up to par. Why would you even care? I care because I don't care if my ancestors came from a raggedy village hut in Nigeria. I don't give a damn. I still would like to know what my ancestry line is. I have a right. I'm listening to these white people talk about they're Irish, they're from England, they're this and that, or Italy, and the pride. I hear pride. Like, it's something about knowing you come from that gives you pride, and I think that's what blacks are missing. That's a key component. We don't know where the fuck we come from. Now, when I read the book Roots, and I actually watched the movie a long time ago, I remember Kunta Kinte, he passed down. He was, if you haven't seen Roots or read Roots, most people have, but he basically, it was a story of an African young man kidnapped in Africa and brought over here. Just kind of show, there was the lineage of Alex Haley. Alex Haley wrote the book of his family lineage, and it started with Kunta Kinte, who was first brought over here and enslaved. He was from Africa. I don't know. I don't remember what part of Africa he was from, but he was brought over here and enslaved. And Alex Haley traced his lineage all the way back. But the cool thing was, nothing about slavery was cool, but the cool thing for Alex Haley, something bad, terrible happened, and what good came out of it was his ancestor Kunta Kinte passed on some things. So when the slaves were brought over here, I wasn't allowed during slavery, obviously, but from what I've read and whatnot, I can only go based upon what I have read and heard. Of course, they had their own language, and they had to get broken in and taught English. So they gave another slave the responsibility of, from the movie and the book's kind of different, but allegedly Kunta Kinte had to learn English in like 6 months or whatnot, or around 6 months. He had to learn English basically, because how can they give him orders and tell him to do stuff if he don't know what the hell they're saying, right? So think about that. If you are brought to a whole nother country people who look different than you and have a whole nother language. Even though you both are human, but you have a whole different language, you gotta learn that language. What they're gonna do is make you forget your old language. They don't want you to remember that at all. And then you probably will start forgetting it because you're not around other people who talk it anymore. Everybody talks this stuff called English. So you probably won't be able to retain your native tongue because they don't want you talking your native tongue, and you're not around anybody who talks your native tongue. But the cool thing about Kuta Kinte, he passed on to his daughter, I think Kizzy, basically certain words. So like one word meant drum. He told her the meaning of the word drum in his language, and he told her to remember it. And he told her other different meanings of different things in his native tongue, his native African tongue, and she remembered those words, and she kept passing it on to where Alex Haley even knew the stuff. See, with my ancestors on either side of my mom and my dad's side, they didn't pass down any old African language and hold on to, because you have to consciously hold on to that stuff to try to hold on to a part of you. Now you might say, what's the big deal about knowing where you come from? It's culture. See, everybody except for a lot of blacks have pride in their culture. Your culture to me is certain traditions you have. Your culture is the foods you eat, the music you listen to, the way you wear your hair, the way you dress. And I think everybody, as long as the culture is not hurting animals or hurting children, I don't have a problem with it. Or doing nothing, mutilating you and all that. But most people have a different culture, and what I know is that Africans that come over here straight from Africa, they have a different culture than black Americans. And like, for example, this one guy I work with, he was straight from Africa, and when he was eating for lunch, I noticed he had white rice, fish and beans, which that's not the healthiest, but that's healthier than the stuff that a lot of blacks eat called soul food, because that's pretty healthy. I mean, throw in some green veggies and he's cool, and take away the fish. But I noticed that Africans that come straight over here, that migrate over here, the way they eat is different. And I noticed some of their foods, from what I can see, some of their foods, not all, is a little bit healthier, but don't quote me on that. But the foods they eat are different. The way they dress, the way they talk. And I'm a little bit more, I admire that about them, because they have a culture. Now you might say, black Americans, we do too. Hip hop, soul food. I don't really like our culture. First of all, hip hop has turned into a negative influence on the black community. The food that we eat, from my understanding, once again, I was not born during slavery, but from my understanding, the slave master, whatever the fuck you want to call him, would get a slave the leftovers of the pigs and other parts of the animals. Allegedly, the slaves, since the white people, the slave master, did not want to eat the intestines of the pig and the feet and the hands and all that, the blacks started taking what was left over and making dishes out of it. So that's where chitlins come from. The chitlins is the intestines of a pig. So a lot of the foods that was passed down from slavery, from what I can see, that's what they call slave food, was food that was created from a people that was in bondage. Understand, we are evolving spiritually, so we cannot think the way a person would that was in bondage. If you're still eating the foods of people who were in bondage, you are technically still in bondage yourself. And that's what I feel that's going on with blacks. And I think if it was a way that we all could trace our lineage back to Africa and see where we come from, I'm not saying we all have to move back to Africa. This is not about moving back to Africa. This is about just knowing who the fuck you are. And I feel like when you have a sense of belonging, you have a sense of pride. And I think blacks don't have a pride. That's why blacks, you notice, are more open to other people's cultures than people are to ours. Most people, other races, in my opinion, I knew a girl, for example, Maria, I went to like a mostly Hispanic high school. There was some Asians there, some Russians there, and maybe 10% black. And I went over her house for Thanksgiving. Now she liked all races of men, but she had a crush on this black guy named Nick. Now she wanted to, excuse my language, fuck a black guy, but she didn't want to know about our culture. She never asked, what are the foods you guys eat? Or, not you guys, but what kind of foods do, you all prepare, and you might say that's generalizing, but let's make it clear. Asians, some Chinese, they usually eat a certain way. A lot of I talked to a girl who was from Korea. Me and her became friends. She was saying their food, Korean food, the base is usually rice, and then you add on vegetables and meat or whatever. And she was saying a lot of Koreans that come over here from Korea, they get fat the first year because they start eating McDonald's and Burger King and stuff like that. But they're said how they eat is usually the base of their food is rice. And I love learning about other cultures. So asking someone about their cultural food, that's intelligent. I had a friend, she's black American like me, but her husband moved over here to get a green card, and he was straight from Africa. She was cooking a African dish that was based upon his culture. When you see, that shows when you really want to be with somebody, you learn about that culture. Now, you don't have to negate your culture to embrace another's. Like, you have to have balance. You have to love your culture and another, and also want to learn about another person's culture. But the problem is with blacks, we don't have pride in our own culture, because the culture we have, I don't know, it's a culture that comes out of poverty, out of it's just something's not, it's to me it's not a pure culture. I don't know, it's a manufactured culture it started from the culture where the food started from enslaved people. So that's our cultural food. I want to know, that's, to me, soul food is not really our cultural food. Our cultural food will truly be the food of whatever ancestry line we come from. So, for example, if I trace my ancestry line, and it's of Nigerian people, Kenya people, and people of the Congo, then to me, the foods they eat will really be part of my ancestry line. And if I start to eat those foods, my body might respond well to them, because that's really where I come from. That's where my DNA comes from. The soul food, the chitlins, the collard greens, and ham hocks and all that shit, that is not part of my family lineage. It was forced upon us because that's what we had to eat. But I do not feel like that's really our cultural food. And I think that's why blacks, I feel, sometimes don't want to embrace their hair. Yeah, we have been looked down upon and treated like shit and told that we're ugly. I get all that, but I think it was able to work on us so well because you bring a race of people over here and you surround around a whole nother race that don't like them, and they indoctrinate them, and then they're not allowed to be around, go back to Africa, obviously, and embrace their culture. It's weird how with blacks, I don't know if you notice, everybody, but I feel like some other races are threatened by black culture, threatened by our true culture, not this shit we got now. See, our culture now opens us up to getting misused by other races. Like, that's why Asians can come into our community and have all the beauty supplies and make money off of us. That's why Arab people can come into our community, own all the gas stations, and have all the businesses in our fucking community. So our culture is actually defected, and it has opened up the door for us to not own pretty much what we own. 1% of the businesses in America. Our culture has not helped us, because our culture, put it like this, our culture is like baking a cake. If you bake a cake and the pan that you bake it in is has a dent in it, all the cakes that you bake in that pan, they're going to come out with a dent in it. So I kind of feel like our foundation for our culture, the black Americans that were born over here, and when I say we come from slaves, we don't actually come from slaves. I'm saying that, for me, for example, my family lineage goes way, yours and mine, our family lineage goes way past slavery, obviously. And that's nothing too. They don't want us to learn about our culture past slavery. I don't know if you noticed that, because all the movies about slavery. But what about my family lineage before slavery? When they were in their homeland, you don't want to talk about that. They just want to keep talking about when our ancestors were brought over here and fucking enslaved. And so we're just dealing from our ancestors from when they were enslaved, and now we have adapted the culture of an enslaved people, the foods. And then as we progressed, not really progressed, but as time went on and blacks weren't slaves anymore over here, then it was okay, the poverty, then it was them flooding our community with drugs, and then you built a culture based upon that, then hip-hop, then like all this stuff just came based upon our experience in America. But I think our true culture is not our experience in America. I think our true culture is our ancestry line, and that's what we need to learn about. I don't care if my ancestors come from the most disgusting, rundown part of Africa where people just want to escape. I don't give a fuck, because then we need to rebuild that community. Just like we want to rebuild the hood over here, we need to rebuild that community. So I don't care if they come from a small village in a hut. I don't give a damn. That's still my lineage. And that's why I feel blacks, deep down, we don't feel we belong anywhere, because we don't know who the fuck we are. Other races, Mexicans that come straight over here, that's fleeing Mexico for a better life, they still know they're Mexican. They still can go back. They know where their village they come from. They know everything. Even though they're trying to get away from it, they still know who they are. We don't know. Black Americans, we don't truly know who we are. And you can say you're not African and all that. You don't know then what the fuck are you? You just don't know what part of Africa your ancestry line come from. Yes, you were born over here. But I'm saying, with Caucasians and everything, they can say, well, my ancestors, I have English in me, and I have Irish in me, I have Italian. I can't say shit. I'll have to literally get a DNA test and figure out who the fuck I am. And that bothers me to my fucking core. And I think this is internally what a lot of blacks are going through. That's why we can't truly, I think, love ourselves, and we're so susceptible to getting, to getting brainwashed, and to getting people into, what is the word, it's very easy to get us to hate ourselves. Basically, it's kind of easy for people to get us to not have pride in our culture, because we technically don't have one. We kind of know this culture we have is a manufactured. What is the culture now? The culture now is for black men to sleep with a lot of different women. The culture now is really to not get married. The culture now in the black community is to have be a baby mama, have multiple kids by multiple men. The culture now is still to eat bad foods. Black men and black women both still eat really bad foods. Some are vegetarian, vegans, but it's a very small percentage. And black men complain about black women being fat, but black men didn't work out, they'll be fat too. So I don't want to hear that bullshit. Black men and black women do not eat healthy, and that's because the food, obviously not all of them, but it's a high percentage that don't, because it's a cultural thing. Coming from the enslaved people, our ancestors, that food was passed down. That's what the hell we eat. The fat back and all that shit, now we're going to the restaurants a lot, and it's not as much home cooking. We don't, and if you was to trace back your ancestry line, like to Kenya, Nigeria, I don't think the foods would be as bad on our body as I don't think we would eat certain foods. I think it would be more high in vegetables, maybe some fish, rice, beans. I'm not quite sure, because each culture has different foods they eat, but I don't think the foods would be as bad, like eating chitlins, the intestines of a pig. I don't think that would have been on our, dietary plate. So I think that we need to investigate this. I want you just to think about this for a second. Do you feel, be honest with yourself, a sense of sadness and disconnect that you don't really know who you are? Like, yeah, you're an individual, Jennifer, John, yeah, you're an individual. But even your name, my name is my name, but the name I was given, that's not an African name. The last name I have, that's not an African. I was thinking about changing my last name. That's not an African name. Like, we don't even know the native tongue of our ancestors. We don't even know the names of that village or that community that we come from. We don't even know. And I'm telling you, deep down, that is painful. When I sit here and I listen to other races, whites, Asians, whoever they are, talking about, I'm half Irish, I'm in England, and have pride, and talk about festivals and all that, and I don't have shit to say. I cannot have this conversation with another black person, because they don't know who the fuck they are either. And that is opening us up to hating ourselves. That's opening us up to not wanting to embrace our natural hair and our wide nose and big lips and brown skin. We don't have a sense of pride. We don't have a sense of belonging. Now, we was to visit Africa regularly, especially a nice area of Africa where people, it wasn't run down, because they have made that image of Africa, which Africa is some great parts of Africa from my understanding. They want us to believe that all of Africa is fucked up. And we was to visit those parts and see people a large amount that look like us, and see the native tongue, I think we will have a different perspective, and we feel more of a sense of belonging, and we will feel like this is how we're supposed to look. I'm gonna say this. I feel like a lot of us don't like the way we look, because deep down, because we feel this is not how you're supposed to look. We on TV, they keep showing other races of people, white people mostly, and over here whites kind of run stuff. So psychologically, we think, we want to fit in and belong. Psychologically, you might not know you're doing this, so that's why you might want to wear your hair straight, or you might want to get a nose job. You wish you were lighter, because you just want to fit in and belong. But I'm telling you, that feeling of wanting to belong can be fulfilled if you knew your ancestry line and would go back and visit that village or that part of Africa and learn about that people. You might look similar to them, and then you would feel a sense of belonging that will probably make you drop to your knees and cry, because that's really what you're looking for. Trying to fit in and get breast implants and ass injections and changing your hair and complexion, hating that you're black, that's not gonna change you from being black. You're gonna still be black. And see, but you don't have a pride in being black, and I understand why you don't. Why would you? They keep telling you come from slaves. They keep telling you seeing all other black people living in poverty. Why would you have a sense of pride? Then they telling you ugly. I understand it. I go through that same shit. However, I think if we knew our ancestry line, we could be around other Africans that look like us and see their culture. I'm telling you, that is that missing piece that I think black men and black women have been searching for. And that is, I think, a threat to other races of people, because once we have pride, it's a wrap for them. They can't come into our community and take from us and exploit our insecurities. They have created insecurities in blacks. Blacks have insecurities on the way that we look. And so they can come in and make money off of that with the relaxers and the weave and shit like that, the nose jobs, the skin bleaching. They could come in, and even though you might not do these things to yourself, you might subconsciously want to do those things. Just because you haven't bleached your skin don't mean deep down you don't want lighter skin. You might just not be willing to go the extra mile to get it, but you might want that lighter skin deep down, so you can fit in. Why do you want to fit in with people who don't want you around and who don't look nothing like you? Even though we're all human beings and we should all get along, I'm trying to tell you what it is that you're yearning for, that connection to who you truly are. Your biological lineage is what I call it. I feel we have two beings. We have the physical body, we have the spiritual body. Your physical body, the DNA, you're yearning for the people that you share your DNA with, your lineage with. You want to know where you come from. You want to know if you're from Kenya, from Ghana, from Nigeria. You want to know those things. But you might don't know that you want to know those things. But the more you look in the mirror and the more you try to belong to people who don't want you around, why are you trying to force yourself to belong to people who can't stand your fucking presence? Okay, I'm for all people. See, I'm open. I'm gonna tell you something. I think blacks are more open to other cultures because blacks don't know our culture. We don't really truly have a culture, so we're trying to grab, we're trying to hold on to something because we don't have nothing of our own. If we will trace our lineage back, we can fill that void inside of us.